I'm Marianne Sasaki. You're watching Life in the Law. I am so thrilled, delighted, beside myself today to have a guest that I've long wanted on the show, Representative Della Au Belatti. She's just the epitome of integrity and stands for all the issues. She's on all the same sides of the issues that I am. So I'm almost speechless. You see, I'm almost speechless. So thank you for coming today, Della.
Thank you for having me here.
Okay, may I call you Della? I can call you Representative if you would like.
No, call me Della.
Okay.
I'm Della.
So, you know, I told you when I came here, I was fascinated by you because I would be going, you know, I have a few things that I'm pro, you know, the legalization of marijuana, I'm very pro LGBTQ rights and so on. And you would always show up at whatever event I was at, you would always show up. So how did you build this public life? Like, how did, you have kids, how did you do it?
So I think like most working families, I have a great partner, my husband of many years, and my two daughters are very supportive of my career. We've done it by working hard, by balancing our, everything, juggling everything. And I got to tell you, I couldn't do it without grandparents as well.
Yeah, you're lucky to have grandparents.
Yes.
That's a real boon. Because, you know, this woman goes everywhere. I see her everywhere. Because I try to go everywhere. So I'm telling you, every bar event and women's event, it's terrific. So speaking of women's events, what I'd like to talk to you about is the Women's Legislative Caucus, because you said they're doing big things, and I'm interested in the big things they're doing. So what are they doing?
Well, we've been in existence for, I think, over several decades. It's first started, I believe, with Senator Mazie Hirono when she was in the House. But we are a bipartisan caucus, and this year we had a banner year. We passed over 9 bills, and just yesterday we had a bill signing with the governor. These bills range from issues involving contraceptive care and access to health care for women, but also things like sex trafficking and addressing sexual assault on university campuses. So we've worked really hard at bringing in stakeholders, talking to individuals, bringing parties together, and then crafting legislation. Sometimes it's a long journey. So for example, our sex trafficking, human trafficking bill, Hawaii was the last state in the nation to actually have a comprehensive sex trafficking bill. We passed it into law, the governor signed it yesterday, and now we can really move forward with addressing
Well, that's good, because it's a huge issue, and I think people think, oh, it can't happen here, but I think it happens in a very, you know, insidious, little invidious way at junior high and high school levels, and kids don't even know they're getting sucked in, and they're getting sucked into this horrible programmatic system of abuse and, you know, exploitation.
You're absolutely right. And what was really great about us passing that bill is that we had to draw in the community. So we know that there are particular schools where it's kind of a hotbed and a target. Mm-hmm. We worked with the area legislators. I have to say, Representative Lauren Matsumoto, who is a Republican, she's on the opposite side of me on the aisle, but it was her bill and she really helped move that one forward. So that's another great feature of the Women's Legislative Caucus. We're bipartisan, so it's really a collaborative effort.
That's terrific. That's terrific. And it's addressing just the issues that need to be addressed. You know, we had some young interns here and they did a great film on LGBTQ transgender rights in the teenage community. And now we have some new interns, and I think a really good idea for their film might be sex trafficking in schools, because nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants, and it really bears like a serious look, you know.
Sure.
So I'm so glad, and I think is Representative Matsumoto?
It's Representative Matsumoto.
I thank Representative Matsumoto. It's okay, you're a Republican. I have Republican friends. I have Republican relatives. So tell us more about what kinds of legislation did you work on in this session?
So I'm the health chair. I've been the health chair for the last 4 years. We worked on so many bills. We passed legislation that's going to put us at the leading edge of telehealth across the nation. That's really important for us here in Hawaii because we are an island state and we need telehealth to be able to connect the islands.
I think we need to explain telehealth to people because I'm not even quite sure what it is.
So telehealth is the idea that you're allowed to use telecommunications, digital formats to be able to connect providers and patients from across long distances. We've struggled with how do you pay for those services? Right. Can you store and forward information?
Right, HIPAA issues, there must be HIPAA issues. Right?
A lot of those. So we have passed a law that kind of clarifies those issues, and it's a very nice companion bill right now to what's moving in the U.S. Congress. I believe Senator Schatz is leading the effort at the federal level. So we're only going to see more and more of these kinds of bills that help to really make telehealth something that comes to life, because we know that we have a lack of workforce, doctor shortage, nursing shortage, and so we're going to need to use these kinds of innovative technologies to be able to connect patients and doctors together.
Are they mainly diagnostic? Are they diagnostic, or can they actually do remote kinds of operations or direct not operations, but some procedures, let's say?
I would not be able to comment on that. I know I'm more familiar with the diagnostic aspect of it, but technology is leading us in so many different directions right now, so we have to make sure that our laws accommodate that. In addition to the telehealth, we also passed a cleanup bill for our medical marijuana dispensaries.
Oh, okay, yeah, because there were a few odds and ends left hanging there.
Lots of odds and ends, but what I'm excited about is that we are moving forward with an industry, and as we continue to tweak the law, we're going to be able to create the industry that we need, that our patients deserve. Some of the things that in this new law that the governor is going to sign into law, he did not put it on his veto list. We're going to be able to encourage, we've authorized JABSOM, the School of Medicine, the Cancer Center.
I saw that, yeah.
The university to basically get involved in research and potential commercial enterprises with medical marijuana. So that's really important. We've created a task force that's going to continue to look at the other issues out there. So things like edibles. Our current medical marijuana law does not allow edibles.
Does not provide for them, I know.
But we know that many people take the medicine in orally. So we really have to consider and think about the ways in which we can roll out edibles in the state. I
really think that's important, and thinking ahead about edibles, because in Colorado now they just passed some legislation where they can't make gummy. They're going to not be able to make, say, gummy candies. So we have to take what children see and what children think into consideration before we jump into the market. And we're lucky we have other people before us, so we have a little bit of guidance. They had no guidance at all. But I think edibles, everybody, the way the method of distribution is such a slow method, and I mean nobody really wants to smoke. I don't think if you don't have to.
Yeah, so and we know that medicine comes in cough syrup form. So there certainly are things that we have to do and explore and understand better. We can impose reasonable regulations, and we can make the industry work for us here in Hawaii.
Tell me, how is the hemp industry related to the medical marijuana industry?
So we also passed an industrial hemp bill that's going to allow for multiple research test sites across the state. Now, industrial hemp relates to medical marijuana because we know that there's also medicinal hemp. And that's the high CBD, low THC concentrations of marijuana.
That doesn't get you low THC, right?
Yeah, that doesn't get you high. So it's going to be interesting to see if and whether or not industrial hemp evolves into the arena of medicinal hemp, because there will be some intersection between medicinal hemp and medicinal cannabis or medical marijuana. Right.
I can't imagine that they wouldn't want to explore that, because it's got to be one of the more lucrative areas, just one of the more cutting edge areas. So I can't imagine that somebody will want to do some research and experimentation, I think.
And I think we need to encourage that. So that's the reason for the industrial hemp bill. The industrial hemp bill is also setting up a mechanism where we can study the commercial benefits of industrial hemp, and I think one of those areas is going to be kind of the nutraceutical values of hemp.
Great.
So we'll see, but I think it's exciting. It's an emerging industry. It can help us utilize lands that are agricultural lands. We need to plan accordingly, and I think we also have to start thinking about, just as we have Kona coffee, people have, struggled over how do you brand and label and maintain the consistency of Kona
integrity,
coffee. So we need to, as we're rolling out the industry, we need to have that conversation about how do we preserve the Hawaii brand for medical marijuana or industrial hemp that's Hawaii grown.
And that's a huge brand. I mean, it's because we evoke certain images in people's minds in terms of cultivation and crops and so on, and we really don't want play around with that at all, you know, and besmirch that in any way. So you really want to have regulation of how people, you know, distribute whatever brands they want, however they want to brand. Branding marijuana is so fascinating. I went to, I told you, the convention in Oakland, and you know, there are advertising agencies that are dedicated to just branding marijuana brands and strains and naming them and you know, sort of making them stand out from the other competitors in the market. I mean, I think people should know that this is a really super exciting time for Hawaii. I mean, we're at the it's almost like the beginning of the internet. We're at the cusp of something that's going to be very, very big. Della and I were talking about there's an initiative in California which will most certainly pass with respect to recreational marijuana. And the tide is turning, and we're here and so that our input can be heard.
Absolutely. I think this is a great time also for lawyers who want to understand this field and help shape this field.
Right.
Because we're going to need intellectual property lawyers, we're going to need land use lawyers, we're going to need regulatory expertise, and we're going to need law enforcement. They're going to be part and parcel with us. So I think this is a great time to be a lawyer, too.
And also, I think it is. And also, and it was very clear in the conference, that they're in dire need of business and taxation lawyers. This is like well, taxation is complicated because of the federal government, and the federal government is still, marijuana is still illegal, and so the tax ramifications are complicated. But eventually they won't be, and you know, they'll need experts in that. You still need experts in that field, despite the fact that the federal government is not engaging with these businesses. And you know, they also, I thought what was interesting, and I didn't even think of that, I went to a conference on toxic torts, like mass toxic torts, and I had never considered that. Yeah, if you have a crop that's not been grown correctly or been so you use something, you know, some questionable product on it, it can cause a lot of people to be harmed, and so that's also another area lawyers will eventually, you know, be hopefully not, but eventually that's an area of practice.
Certainly. I mean, consumer safety is going to be a huge issue, especially as we see these products hit the market. You know, in our bills for medical marijuana, we focused very carefully on making sure that it's child resistant or packaged in child resistant packaging. That's going to be important because, you know, I think there is this desire to legalize, and
I think there is.
And clearly there are benefits on the medical side for cannabis or marijuana, but you know, there's still concerns. So we need to make sure we also address those concerns about public safety, and also that it's not you know, harmful to children.
Yes, well, I think those are very legitimate concerns, and I had a conversation with Dr. Pressler, Virginia Pressler, and that's the single most concern of the health department. And I'm going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about some of the packaging I saw and what kinds of things can be done with respect to adult use that can protect children as well.
Okay.
You're watching Think Tech Hawaii, Life in the Law. I'm Marianne Sasaki.
You're watching Think Tech Hawaii, meeting people we may have not otherwise met, helping us understand and appreciate the good things about Hawaii. Great content for Hawaii from Think Tech.
Hi, my name is Aaron Wills. You are watching ThinkTechHawaii.com. I am the host of the show Rehabilitation Coming Soon. You can watch us live at ThinkTechHawaii.com at 11 a.m. on Tuesdays. I will see you there.
You're watching Think Tech Hawaii, which streams live on ThinkTechHawaii.com, uploads to YouTube, and broadcasts on cable OC16 and Olelo 54. Great content for Hawaii from Think Tech.
Aloha, my name is Josh Green. I serve as senator from the Big Island on the Kona side, and I'm also an emergency room physician. My program here on Think Tech is called Healthcare in Hawaii. I'll have guests that should be interesting to you twice a month. We'll talk about issues that range from mental health care to drug addiction to our healthcare system and any challenges that we face here in Hawaii. We hope you'll join us. Again, thanks for supporting Think Tech.
Hi, you're watching Life in the Law. We're talking a little bit about women power during the break, and I think a perfect example of women power is Della Au Belatti, representative of the 24th District.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And we were talking a little bit about the concerns about child safety and child-proofing with respect to medical marijuana. We don't want to make these things attractive to children. That's I think, the single biggest issue.
That's very clear in our law.
Right, and I think also there are concerns also, like, with respect to driving while under the
Yes.
influence.
Yes.
And Hawaii's got to be really careful with that, because the amount of drunk driving that I observe is just stunning. And that's something that really needs to be addressed by the legislature. I don't know how. I mean, I don't know what the best way to do it is.
Sure.
But I don't drive, but I can tell if somebody's not in the right mind by just how they weave along the road. So that's another big issue with
Sure.
respect to.
So what we know about marijuana is that it can impair driving, clearly.
Right.
But what we need to do is we need to put resources in our law enforcement so that they're trained to be able to identify it, and then look for it when they pull someone over who is clearly driving while impaired. The tests that they're coming up with, we know, are not really working. So people would want like a 0.1 amount in the blood level, but we don't have the technology yet to test the blood level. And so
interesting.
so we're not going to be able to apply a singular test like we do for alcohol
Right.
at this point in time. And so it's really, really important, I think, that we train our law enforcement officers to be able to identify any type of drug driving and stop it. So
Right.
whether it's drunk driving or drug driving, we need
Right.
to stop it.
Right. Well, I think, people that are really in favor of the legalization, the recreational legalization of marijuana, have to take responsibility too, and sort of self-monitor this behavior. I mean, I monitor people's behavior all the time. I'm constantly telling people they shouldn't drive, and my husband drives, so I say, oh, he can drive you home. But I mean, if you want this thing, and everybody who does it's a pleasurable thing. It's a lot of people participate. That's fine, but with such a luxury comes certain responsibilities, and that's one of them, to use it, carefully and in an adult fashion, and not
Yes.
abusively.
Yes,
So-
absolutely. And I think the other states that that have recreational drugs or recreational marijuana are struggling with that, and they're finding ways to address those.
Yeah,
issues.
well, that you can't test is a problem.
It
But
is.
that the person who comes up with that patent will be a very rich person.
Yes, for
Well,
sure.
because it's so sorely needed. So what else? Well, tell me what else. What else is going on in the legislature? What else is going on with Della Au Belatti? Anything?
Well, in the legislature right now, we're in the period of veto consideration by the governor, and he's put out his list of about 9 or so bills that he's considering vetoing, and we are set on July 12th to be able to come in and override the vetoes if the legislature chooses.
Okay.
Now, it's very rare, actually, for a veto override
Yes.
to occur, but there really are a number of bills that are of great public interest on the governor's veto list. So clearly, people are waiting very anxiously for the governor to identify what bills he will ultimately veto.
Can you tell me one or two that you think may be overridden by the legislature?
Well,
or important ones that it's impossible to predict? Right?
Sure. I'll point out two really important ones that have a lot of attention at the moment. One is the bill relating to the Maui Memorial employees, the separation and benefit packages. Right now, Maui region of the Hawaii Health Systems Corporation is going through a transition. We allowed them to basically enter a public-private partnership, and Kaiser is looking to take over the management of the hospitals.
Okay.
So we have to deal with what's going to happen with employees. So the governor has expressed some concerns about that bill, that they may be overly generous. So we're watching to see if the governor is going to veto that bill. Another bill that's important and that's been in the news a lot has been the Airbnb, the tax accommodations bill.
But Airbnb, I can spend an hour on it. I will one day spend an hour on Airbnb. I find it so reprehensible. But yes, so they should be taxed. And how is it?
So we passed a bill that would treat and allow Airbnb to be treated as tax brokers, and then we could begin to collect taxes through Airbnb. However, there has been opposition to it. Some folks feel, and the governor has expressed the concern, that the county enforcement really needs to occur, because it's at the county level that you deal with these types of situations. So right now we're kind of in a waiting period. The public can weigh in. The governor has put that bill onto the notice of intent to veto list, but he has not yet vetoed it.
Oh, okay.
So from the legislative perspective, we provided a tool where we could at least collect taxes.
Right, a framework. I mean, how it's implemented, what rules by which it's implemented, well, that's another discussion. But I mean, the fact that, these businesses are operating with like little or no oversight, and they're making lots of money. I mean, this is a huge issue in New York too. And they really need to be regulated in some way. And taxing is the very least that can be done with respect to the monitoring of them. I'd like to see a lot of legislation associated with Airbnb.
Sure.
Because you're not staying in a hotel, and so there are no laws. There are no specific laws covering you like there are with hotels. So people don't realize.
To be fair to the other side, there have been many, many advocates who've come out in opposition and do want the veto to go through because they are concerned that we're basically allowing an illegal practice to move forward.
Well,
and so it's a philosophical reason that,
Right.
I think the governor has a lot to weigh when he makes this decision. I think there's concerns about the proliferation of Airbnb types of businesses into the community, but my response to that would be that it's happening already.
it's happening. People, once people found this cottage industry of a way to make money, and particularly like somewhere like when I was in New York and Hawaii, you have these, if you have an apartment that's open for a few months a year, if you have a second residence or whatever, people, it's so much money. It's so much money because it's commensurate with hotel rate. Not exactly, but it's not rental rates. And I can't see putting that genie back in the bottle. I agree with you. I think it's here to stay, and how we deal with it is what the question is, not whether or not we deal with it.
Yeah, so we'll be looking carefully. And again, the public can weigh in. I don't know the specific website, but if they go to hawaii.gov/governor, I'm sure there's a link there where the public can send testimony to the governor as to what bills he should or should not veto.
I'm going to look that up. I think you all should look it up too, because I have some strong feelings, and I love to, weigh in. I love to have my opinion heard at every strata, frankly. So definitely check the website, and if you have. If there probably are other things on there that you can weigh in on. And if you have thoughts, definitely send them to your legislators. They want to hear. You want to hear, don't you?
Yes, we are very accessible. We have our public emails. It's on the Capitol website, capital.hawaii.gov. So it's very easy to contact legislators and let your voice be heard.
I love that about Hawaii. In New York, there are all kinds of buffers and media people, and here you can just pick up the telephone. Like I picked up the telephone and called you and said, hey, would you like to do this? I'd really like to have you. We're small, so that we can develop a community and be heard by government. There's no reason to let somebody else make decisions for us. We can make our own decisions.
And my colleagues and I are very accessible. I know some people feel frustrated and feel disconnected, but for the most part, I find that my colleagues and I are very open to hearing. Oahu legislators attend many of the neighborhood boards, so that's another avenue through which you can contact your legislators.
Neighborhood boards, that's great. So, okay. Give some advice. Say there's a young woman out there watching. She's maybe in her second or third year of law school, and she's thinking, oh my God, I don't want to go to a big law firm because it's going to be horrible. And it will be if you do, because I'll tell you I did. And they want to pursue a career in public office. What would you recommend that they do coming out of law school?
I think coming out of law school, one, you need to get experience in some kind of legal job. If you really want to go into public policy, there's jobs at the legislature. During the legislative session, we hire legislative staff. We need good staff attorneys, so they certainly can apply to jobs there. But I think also another way to get involved is if you go the regular route and you get a firm job or you work somewhere, it's also important to volunteer in your community.
Right.
There's many, many boards and commissions that we need to fill. So I got started when I was a young teacher. I actually was appointed to the State Campaign Spending Commission. And that was an opportunity that just sort of, it jumped out at me. There was a little ad in the paper, and I just jumped at it. So I think people need to keep their eyes open for volunteer opportunities. There's so many ways you can give back to your community, whether it's serving on boards or commissions, or volunteering for a nonprofit, or getting involved in your child's school. There's many ways to influence and gain experience at
Agreed.
organizing the community.
Absolutely. And you know, I always tell young lawyers this, it sounds so corny, but it's really true. You know, the law is not a job, it's a profession. We have obligations. We're officers of the court. We have obligations to our community. So, I mean, we're in the perfect position to be examples and help others a lot, actually. We have a lot of knowledge that will help people. So, you know, I'm always a little disheartened when people want to go, you know, for the biggest salary or the biggest job. I'm a corporate lawyer, but without the other stuff, I'd be miserable being a lawyer. I mean, I need the people contact and the idea that, you know, I'm making a contribution somehow, you know, that it's not all just happening outside of myself, you know.
Yeah, and I think what I love about this millennial generation that's coming out of the schools now,
greatest. I love them.
they understand that. They understand the importance of relationships and doing things outside of your normal workday. And I think those are valuable things that we have to cultivate. I
have to say, millennials, you know I love you. I always say I love you. And you have to vote in September. Please vote in September. But I love the way the communal spirit, the do-it-yourself spirit of the millennials. They were born into a really rather rocky economic climate, and you know they have no choice but to try to fix it. And they're so inventive, and I'm always stunned when I'm talking to some of my colleagues that work in their 20s and the other things they're doing or the things they're interested in, if they have blogs or whatever, other creative tasks. So yeah, absolutely. You know, well, I encourage millennials to get involved in politics and even run for office, because this is their time. It's their turn now. It may not feel like your turn, but it really is. Trust me, my generation has been at it long enough. We've messed things up enough. We need you. We really need you desperately. So, are there young people? Well, you know, I know a young county council person.
We have a number of young legislators, lawmakers rising up through the ranks in both the state legislature as well as county council. I think we're seeing more people get involved with the latest turnout in both the Republican and the Democratic primaries. You know, there's a lot of people who are interested in getting involved. So that is another way. If you're not going to run for office, find someone you like and help them run for office.
That's what I do. I'm the helper. I'm not the runner. I'm the helper. I like helping. It always feels good at the end of an election or whatever. Whether your guy wins or loses or your girl wins or loses, it doesn't matter. You've developed these connections. It's terrific. So we only have a couple of seconds left. Okay. And is there anything? Do you have something important that you would like to say to our audience? Or I'm delighted to thank you so much for coming. I know you have a very busy life. So
no, I just want to thank you for this opportunity to talk to your audience, and just want to echo your message about civic engagement and community involvement. That's how we make this place a better place, is when people get involved.
Right, it's us. We are the government. We are the government. So if we're complaining about the government, we're complaining about ourselves if we do nothing. So thank you, Della Au Belatti, Triple Threat. You're watching Life in the Law on Think Tech Hawaii every Wednesday between 12 and 12:30. I'm Marian Sasaki. I'll see you next week.